This is episode 60 of Standing Out. Standing Out is a remarkable interview style podcast with the intention to highlight women and men making outstanding contributions in their field. This podcast is generously sponsored by Think Global. Think Global is a business advisory firm working with women entrepreneurs around the globe to scale their businesses to the next level. Today, I'd like to welcome Audrey Dempsey. Audrey is the award-winning photographic leader who established Infinity Photo based in Las Vegas and serving the world. Infinity represents the endless possibilities that we can create together. Audrey's expertise is bringing out the best in people, places, and products. She says great photography tells a story about you, your brand, and what you do best. My passion is sharing your story with the world, and I am committed to excellence on every level. Audrey, thank you for being
really
here.
Great. Thank you.
I know. I mean, that committed to excellence on every level. So for the listeners, just so you know, I know Audrey personally, and I can 100% attest to that commitment. She's amazing in everything. So Audrey, I'm really appreciative of you being here, and I think this will be a fun, inspiring interview. So let's back up just a little bit. So how did you get your start in photography?
Oh gosh, that's a really interesting story. I feel like a cat. You know, a cat has 9 lives. And so I started when I was growing up. I was in theater. And being Jewish, I always had a camera. So, you know, I always was interested in observing, period. It was just part of my nature. And so as the years went on, I was at the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis and worked with Sir Dr. Tyrone Guthrie, which was an amazing experience. And then as life would have it, I ended up going in a different direction, and I moved to DC, and that was probably a really big mistake. But anyway.
It's all a journey.
Yeah, really. So I ended up getting married instead of going to the Royal Academy, another big mistake. And anyway, then I spent 8 years in the restaurant field, and then found out that was really not the right person for me, of course. And then I ended up in radio sales, and ended up in Las Vegas, and then I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up.
Yeah.
So I produced shows at the convention center for about 9 years, and then I got together with my now current husband, and he said, why don't you plan our wedding and figure out what you want to do, and after the wedding you can just decide what you'd like to do. And I went, okay, great.
Yeah.
And I have a good job and all of that, so I quit my job, and we sent out the invitations to our large and expensive wedding, and he got fired.
Oh no.
So we had 2 homes,
okay.
A large wedding, and no jobs. And so what do you do when you have that kind of situation? Well,
it's amazing timing, isn't it?
Yes, we happen to be Buddhists, and so we definitely did a lot of Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, and then we started our own business. And I still didn't know what I wanted to do. And I actually had a meeting with Steve Wynn, who wanted me on his team, and his own people didn't hire me. So it was really debilitating. It was like, well, but I have other things I can do besides sell things to people.
Sure,
you know?
right.
So I was actually taking pictures at our Buddhist meetings, and the guy, a friend of mine who would give me his camera, I said to him, they're not turning out the way I want them to. So how do you work this camera? Because I always had a camera, but not an SLR. And he said, I don't know. So that said, okay, well, fine, I'll go buy my own. And that's kind of how it started. And the interesting thing is that a guy who helped me to buy my first camera, a little used Rebel, which worked just fine. And he called me the next day and said, would you like to assist me on a Versace shoot? And I thought,
wow.
Right? I went, okay. So
I'll be there.
Yeah, I said, okay. So, you know, I remember being out in the desert shooting this Italian model who spoke no English, but just whipped her top and was ready to do anything. And I went, this is it. I love this. This is what I want to do.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
I love that, when you talk about being like a cat, like you have 9 lives and all of these evolutions of Audrey. I think it's also interesting because cats, there's that saying, curiosity killed the cat, or cats are curious, whatever it is. But your curiosity to how do you work this camera like led you to be in this field, and you have done some amazing photography and for great, very well established global brands, and then even presidents too. So how
yes.
did you take, like, how do you work this camera to, I'm now shooting photography at the White House?
Well, I didn't actually go to the White House, but I have
Okay.
photographed presidents. So,
Sure. Okay.
interesting that curiosity leads to learning,
Yeah.
and part of learning is making mistakes, lots of them.
Mm-hmm. True.
And so, because we had started our own business, my husband is an amazing and talented graphic designer. And our journey in the last 21 years has been a real evolution of our own lives as well as our business lives. And so, as I was helping him, from my marketing perspective, to grow that business, I was able to, as a matter of fact, it kind of started with Richard Elliott, who's one of my all-time favorite saxophone players. We went to his concert out at Spring Mountain State Park, and I was playing with this camera, and I was just having so much fun, and I just, like, even when he played our song, I never came back to the blanket, and he was so mad, he was ready to play, and so by the time we got to Jimmy Buffett, who's one of his favorites, I had two pictures published from Richard Elliott. And so by the time we got to Jimmy Buffett, Bob was like, get out there and take pictures. And I had a half a page of pictures. So now I had something to show clients. And they said, well, if you can do that, we'll take a chance on you. And that truly is how it started.
Wow.
So, I thought I was going to have a mentor, and I really didn't. So I learned from watching people, from listening to people, from reading books, from going on the internet. I was fortunate enough to go to a seminar in California early on for commercial photography, which is what I wanted to do. And I learned so much in those 4 days, and came back. First thing they taught us was how to do a corporate headshot. And I came back from that. And that's the first job I got.
Oh,
so
wow.
My road, or my journey, actually has truly been a learning experience as I went. And I've been so fortunate that people have been willing to let me make mistakes along the way. Right. And I made big ones.
What's your favorite big mistake that comes to mind?
The one I was thinking of when I said that, which is, I didn't try a new way of doing something before I did it. And back in the film days, you didn't have the option to see, like you do in digital. And so, I learned about bouncing the flash. And so I said, oh, great, I'm going to do this. And I was shooting with transparency film. Well, as I learned in my seminar, you have to be exact with your exposure.
Okay.
And so I'm shooting a tournament at one of the hotels. I'm shooting the final table, and I had a perfectly exposed floor and no people.
Oh, no. But the floor looked great.
Yeah, the floor looked really great.
Oh, I love it. So lesson learned there is try out the new technique before we go live.
Exactly.
Great. You mentioned, some books. You like to read books to stay inspired. What are some of your favorite resources or best kept secrets that help guide you?
Well, I look at photography magazines to look at new trends, and I also, I get bombarded on email with that. But as I said earlier, I've been a Buddhist now for 35 years, And that's probably one of my biggest sources of inspiration. And I'd actually like to read a little something that we had this morning.
Yes,
But
please.
I'll tell you, it sort of goes back to Herbie Hancock is also a member of our organization and someone who I've met a number of times. He heads up the International Committee of Artists for Peace. Okay. And we asked him a question once, how do you chant to become a better artist? And he said, become a better human being.
Oh, wow.
Lesson learned.
Okay.
That was really strict. So I'm going to just read this.
Okay.
This is Wisdom for Modern Life. I don't know if you can see that.
Yes, we can. Okay. Buddhism day to day.
Daisaku Ikeda,
okay.
Who is the international lead of our organization. And today it says, is July 12th. And it says, no one can better bask in summer's balm than those who have endured winter's bite. Similarly, it is those who have suffered through life's darkest hours who are able to truly savor, makes me cry.
Oh, yeah. It's part of the evolution,
Yeah, the dawn of happiness. The person who has transformed the worst of fate into the best of fortune is life's champion.
Oh, wow. I want to give you a big hug, Audrey. This is so you. And I want to share with everyone, one of the ways I met Audrey is how I met Audrey is through this organization called We Bank. We're both certified women-owned businesses. And she and I have met at a couple of events, and she's actually one of my ambassadors, so sort of a mentor for me. And one of the things when you talk about giving excellence and being a champion for other people, like Audrey has just 100% embodied that. And whatever those steps along the journey are to make that happen, whether they be mistakes or what we call bad timing, whatever it is, Audrey has become the champion. And it's really amazing to see. And I can tell that's why, you feel it. That's why you're tearing up. Thank you, Audrey.
That's so sweet. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
Regardless of what our position is or what we do. And so that's why Herbie's words of become a better human being are at the crux of any a person who wants to be successful at anything that they do, including just being a really good human being.
Yeah. And I think that's something, for the most part, we're all trying to be better human beings. But what do you think are just like, I don't want to call them easy, but they're just the little things that you do that are just the right choice and you feel like that's helping others?
I have to say that even as a child, I've always been pretty intuitive. And so I don't always listen. And I think this has been one of the key things that have enabled me to be able to pull out people's essence, which is what photography is about, is that I don't just look at the surface. I look at what's happening underneath the surface. And I think some of that came from even my time in the restaurant biz of being able to kind of anticipate what people's needs were or what their wants were. And so by doing that, I think I'm able to kind of pull out that true essence of them. And that's why they really love their photographs, because even in a natural setting where they're not posing or anything and I'm just capturing, I'm able to find that moment. I did that for these two people that were really close friends, and I captured a moment in time that showed the essence of their friendship. And then he passed away shortly after that. So that became a memory for her to have this photograph. And so, or the time that Dr. Ruth was giving guidance to Robert Mondavi, like this. It was so funny. And I was able to share that photograph with his son. So, I mean, so many different opportunities. But I think that when I started taking pictures at those Buddhist meetings, nobody posed for me. So I had to find those moments.
Oh, right.
I really feel that those years of doing that really were my training ground for
Right.
being able to do what I do. So,
And it's so true. I mean, when I look at photos, I'm just even photos of our kids or, things that we do a lot, we're always trying to capture in just that right moment to pull out the essence of what was happening and their personality. And
mm-hmm.
some of those candid shots are the most cherished photos I have that is them, and I think it's amazing to see.
Because they're real.
Yeah, it's real. You share that picture and people are like, oh, yep, that's absolutely his personality or her personality. I love that. So as we wrap up, my final question is kind of more about your journey and your next step. So you've been in photography for a while. I'd love for you to share how you're using that to leverage on to another new thing.
Well, funny you should mention that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's amazing, and I want the world to know. So share what you can. Don't share what you can't.
Okay. So all the relationships that I have created through the years of my photography, I'm leveraging at this moment to do the next step in my journey, which is to do corporate meetings on cruise ships. And I have to do something I'm passionate about. Yeah. Otherwise, I can't do it. It was the same thing in sales. If I didn't believe in the product, I couldn't sell it. Mm-hmm. Because I'm truly an honest human being, and I'm just not good at how can I say it, at BS, right?
Right, like the spinning of things. Yeah.
So anyway, I love cruising and I love organizing things, and I have shot corporate meetings now for 20 years. Right. So I understand, how they work and what they need and what they like and what they don't like. And so I thought it was sort of became a natural evolution for me to take that knowledge that I've learned through the years and put it to a different, more creative use. So that's my retirement.
Yes. Oh, I'm so excited for all of that to come to fruition, and can't wait to see how everything sort of pans out. It's a natural evolution. So I wish you the best on that. All right, Audrey, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome.